Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy. I'm here with my co-hosts, Maddie B. and Rick David. And I'm going to actually start pretty hot this week. Our main topic is going to be recycling coaches, which is hitting college football right now. And it's going to hit the NFL once again. There's already rumors about possibly the Giants if something's going on with Eli Manning, whom they just benched this weekend or this coming week. If something happens with him, the Giants are pretty much going to be looking for a new coach. The thought of keeping Eli around a year was going to have them keep their coach around just to give it one more go instead of trying to fit a new system in if he was only going to be around for one more year. So they're going to try a new experiment with Geno Smith, who got pretty much knocked out when he was with the Jets, broke his jaw, I think in like a practice scuffle or something. So he's kind of been off the grid, but he's coming in hot. I think that's the main story for me that I've seen. We'll go around the horn. Any hot takes or high tempo for you guys? Matt, we'll start with you.
Yeah, that whole Eli Manning thing had me so agitated. I hated the way that whole draft played out between him and Phillip Rivers, where him and his dad were pouting and saying, I'm not going to go to the Chargers. I'm going to go to the team that I want to go to. Good for him. I'm glad that he got what he got coming to him. I'm glad that he's getting benched, and it almost made me laugh to watch him all borderline crying about getting benched compared to the likes of Geno. Like, I thought that he was overly hyped up to begin with. The two Super Bowls that he played in, he was propped up by a great defense. Is like just like his brother. They benefited from lucky plays and outstanding defensive play. When you look at his Super Bowl, it's highlighted by the Tyreek catch that outside of that one single play did absolutely nothing in the NFL. But they made that one play and disrupted New England's perfect season. So he does have that to hang his hat on. You know, reading things on Twitter of people that were trying to make Eli Manning out to be this top 5 quarterback. He was garbage to begin with, and it just infuriated me to think that they were trying to build him out to be something that he wasn't. In my eyes, he was no better than a Trent Dilfer type quarterback, that he was going to be a game manager. He was a person that wasn't going to lose you a game, but he wasn't a guy that was going to go out there and win you a lot of games. So I'm going to enjoy the next couple of weeks as I watch the Giants implode, because I thought they've been overrated for several years, and it just cracks me up to see now that they finally are falling apart.
Is that your topic for this week? Did I steal it?
No, I've been stewing about it all day. It just aggravates me.
Oh, I've been mad all weekend. Go ahead. It'll just be a hot show this week. What's your topic? What do you have?
Me or
yeah,
Matt?
Matt, are you going?
Okay.
No, that's exactly where I was going with mine to begin with, was because of seeing that stuff with Eli Manning, because that was exactly what I was going for.
All right, Rick, go ahead then.
Mine was actually also Eli Manning, but I also had a backup one just in case one of you two would take it, and it's actually the New York Yankees manager situation. I'm beginning to think, no, this used to be the job to get. Here are your random guys that have been interviewed. Robbie Thompson, who played in the 80s for the Giants. Eric Wedge, who used to coach the Indians and Mariners before they were good. Aaron Boone from ESPN, who's possibly another guy rumored that ESPN's going to let go, because that broadcast with him and the other two, I can't even remember their names, Jessica Mendoza and the other guy, bore me to death. Hansley Bam Bam Mullins, who was a third baseman for the Yankees in 1990. Great pick there. Used to be the Giants hitting coach. Probably your best candidate you have so far. And former first base coach of the Mariners, now Dodgers, Chris Woodard. I mean, you're interviewing the cast of nobodies. And now, today, the rumor came out from Steve Phillips that Carlos Beltran's going to get an interview. Okay.
Oh, my God.
Is Tino Martinez not available? Did anybody call John Wetland and see what he's doing? I don't know. Paul O'Neill is one of your announcers. Why not give him a shot? I mean, Yankees, I don't know what you're doing. You're 2 weeks away from the winter meetings, and you have no idea who your manager is going to be. Good luck to you. And you got a young very good team. If anything, you should get some minor league coach who's had the experience, who can coach players up and take them there. I don't understand hiring random guys who are first base coaches or ESPN broadcasters, but good luck to you, Yankees. I don't know if you know what you're doing. But Brian Cashman did win the Executive of the Year award for all of his moves, but it's definitely not going to be this hiring process, which looks like a train wreck already.
Well, since you brought up the Yankees, I saw Aaron Judge was on the sideline of Michigan for the game over the past weekend. So it's good to see those New York guys cheering for the good guys. It will really help out our basketball recruiting if we can stay big in the New York area. Rick, what are you laughing at?
He went to Fresno State. He sold out on them. He was a power hitter for Fresno State and did good. I don't understand why he was there at the Michigan.
Hey, Derek Jeter, he's a huge Michigan guy.
I don't understand it. It's like Michigan sidelines is like random people in sports just show up. It's like Ric Flair's there one week, Aaron Judge is there. It's like, who's next? Just some random guy.
Hey, Ric Flair's a big fan. He was at our recruiting day.
He's from North Carolina. He grew up in Minnesota. He went to Minnesota High School.
I know, and shout out to him because he just had a 30 for 30. And in his own words, I think he said that it was the highest rated one that ESPN has ever done.
Correct.
That's what he said on the Hardball podcast, I'm pretty sure.
From the ratings I saw, it beat the Michigan Fab Five, and I forget the 1984 draft class, or 1982. The one year that Marino was in, 84, I think it was.
Oh, yeah, the one with him and
it beat that.
83.
Yeah. 83? Okay.
Well, yeah, it's good for him. And let's get ahead and get into, before we get into this, because I'm trying to stay calm before I get too fired up. I'll check in on the Pittsburgh teams, give everyone an update here before we get going. Steelers, kind of a shaky game last weekend, and we'll talk about this when we get to the NFL, but they pulled out the win, won 6 in a row, 9-2, atop of the AFC North. Basically, I think they pretty much have the division locked up. They are tied with the Patriots, but that's going to settle itself soon, so hopefully we can get that win and lock up the home field advantage throughout the playoffs. It's going to be big. And the NHL, the Penguins haven't been playing too hot. 5-4-1 over the last 10. They have won the last 2. The goal differential is still -16, which scares me. Right now, they're sitting at 29 points. They are 5th in the Metropolitan Division. Jeez, I can't even read today. And they need to pick it up. Because if they keep playing the way they are, an average game, they're going to be missed the playoffs. But I'm not too worried yet because I think they're going to kick it on after the Christmas break here and get hot right in time for the playoffs, which is when they need to be hot. Rick, do you have anything on the Pirates?
Penguins. Murray goes to the IR. He got injured in the game.
Yeah,
it was that time of the year where he gets injured. And I know Pitt homers are like, what do you say? I'm like, he's been injured 3 years. He gets injured at this time frame every 3 years. So he's injured again. We bring up Casey DeSmith. And we're keep scratching Ian Cole right now. Rumor is he's gone in a trade somewhere. They're looking for somewhere to ship him. Oilers is possibly a destination. They need some defensive help. But Ian Cole is probably going to be traded here within the next week or two somewhere. So we'll wait and see what happens there. They need offensive firepower. They don't have it. Malkin's injured. Kessel looks like your best player. Crosby's a little bit out of sorts. And your third and fourth line are disasters right now. And Pirates are awful. And Angel Sanchez got released for no reason because we got to get Sam Moll, who had a 5 ERA with the Rockies and Athletics last year, because he was left-handed. It's like, I don't understand their fascination with left-handed pitchers, getting Nick Turley off of waivers and now Sam Moll. But if you're left-handed and you struggled for the past 3 seasons, Pittsburgh is a great place to go. Welcome to Pittsburgh.
Well, another MLB news. I've been painting up the new studio where we're going to be recording this. So hopefully if there's any echo, that should be gone next week. I'll start to move in. But I was looking at stuff. The Detroit Tigers actually sent me a Verlander poster right before they traded him, and he won the World Series. So I thought that was pretty funny that I'll be hanging that soon in the new studio. a vintage Detroit Tigers Verlander poster. So look for that coming soon. I'll put that up on our Instagram, so follow us on Instagram. I've been taking some photos just of the minor progress that I've been making over the past couple weeks, but that's going to be finishing up soon, and we'll be getting into it. Now on to our big topic, the recycling of coaches. I'll go ahead and change our topic thing here. The big news comes out of Tennessee, and I'm going to start with that. It's not really recycling of coaches, but it's basically the main thing. I'll give Matt credit. He's talked about coaches being recycled across the NFL. If you haven't listened to our older episodes, go on to iTunes and subscribe. We've talked about coaches just being basically passed around the NFL. It's kind of starting to happen to college football, where you have coaches jump. So you have Dan Mullen. He's at Mississippi State. There were rumors that he was going to be high up on the list whenever Harbaugh took the Michigan job a few years ago, that he's been looking to jump to a high program. Of course, Harbaugh says yes, and he's waiting. He was waiting. He was leaning towards Florida. That job finally comes open, and Chip Kelly says no, and they give Dan Mullen the call. So kind of a similar situation. I don't know if he was number 2 on Michigan's list, but he was on the list to be interviewed there, and from what I heard. And we'll go ahead and had the same exact situation happen in Florida. They have Chip Kelly, number 1. They get an NFL guy to interview first. He's their number 1. Apparently, he had a very hard time turning the job down because he liked the leadership that Florida had. He liked to, I guess, tour and everything. And he basically elected to stay out west in UCLA. I really wouldn't call that a recycling of coaches. But there are some other ones that are going to be passed around, and we'll get into that. But the main one, the University of Tennessee. I know we joked about it last week. Me and Rick had like a dinner deal going on to see if John Gruden. And I was making some jokes about Tennessee fans wanting John Gruden. It was very similar to the Harbaugh things. Whenever he was getting interviewed at Michigan, they were saying he wasn't going to happen. And basically, the fans and everyone wanted John Gruden. Gruden had put out some tweets. He said some stuff on the radio. And the AD had said that everyone was going to be very, very happy. Now, the rumor was, I think on Tuesday, they were setting up a huge press conference. So everyone thought it was a done deal with someone. And there were some rumors that it was going to be other coaches. I think there was like a list of a couple coaches. Well, out of the blue, from the coaching list that leaked, Greg Schiano was not on the list. So it comes out Sunday that Tennessee is going to announce Greg Schiano as their head coach. And for people that don't know, Greg Schiano basically built the Rutgers program. He never really had a top record there, but they were the bottom of the Big East. He built them up to the team that the Big Ten ultimately invited into the league. He jumps to the NFL. Now, he does have some locker room problems at the NFL. That kind of got passed over this past weekend. And that's what frustrates me with this, because Tennessee, their AD was ready to sign the offer. I think he might have already signed like a letter of a letter saying that he wasn't going to interview anywhere else or whatever, basically locking him up but so that they could start working on the contract itself. On Sunday, I think it was Sunday morning, some other associate athletic director people at Tennessee did not like the hire. They didn't use a search firm. They went ahead. The AD made his pick. I don't know who he consulted with. I think they said that maybe Peyton Manning signed off on it. I've heard conflicting things on that. That Peyton Manning doesn't get along with him based on feedback from other NFL players. And that's all hearsay and stuff. But
hey, because if it's Peyton Manning, then you can trust. Just like you can buy a good pizza from Papa John's trusting Peyton Manning.
Well, hey, Papa John, he was complaining that the ratings in the NFL was hurting his business this year. Profits were down because people weren't watching the NFL is what he said. And then I think other pizza places came out and said, we're not having any issues, Papa. But, yeah. Peyton Manning, a great compass there for the moral high ground whenever he's accused of sexual assault. And he also has HGH shipments for his wife. As you know, his wife's bulking up to join the Miss Universe. Oh, wait, she wasn't. There's no other reason why she would need HGH at the house delivered. It was basically his. So he lied on that. I'm just throwing that out there. Look into that if you want. But the media kind of glossed that over. They're like, nah, he couldn't have been his. the wife must have used it. I think that was his excuse. I could be wrong on that, but yeah, Tennessee, they go ahead, it leaks. Immediately it blows up in their face. Fans, everyone out. And honestly, this should have been a wake-up call to Penn State, because I've lived right outside of State College, maybe an hour away, whenever this was happening, during the sanctions and everything. And now I live in North Carolina. There's a news flash here. Penn State fans, anyone outside of Pennsylvania, this is how they view your program. This is how they view your coaches. I've kind of looked at both sides of it over the past weekend. And basically, outside of Tennessee Stadium, I think Neyland Stadium, whatever it's called, they have a huge rock. They painted it white, and someone's painted on it, Schiano covered up or child rape at Penn State. Something similar to that. I don't know the exact line. And that created huge backlash to the university. And a lot of people were throwing around the McQueary testimony where Schiano was named as a head coach, or named as someone who saw the sexual abuse, even though it was hearsay, not used in court. They never really interviewed him, I don't think. He didn't speak on the topic. And that's what frustrates me, because right now, Schiano, doesn't matter if he was, some people were saying, Penn State people were saying that, because basically we're a Pittsburgh-based show, so I wanted to get a feel of how people in Pittsburgh would view this. And a lot of people were defending Schiano and saying that he should have been hired. And to be honest, that spread all the way to Rutgers and up through New Jersey. I was trying to get a feel. Anyone outside of that region down here in the South, they're fine with it. There's no way he would get a head coaching job here. There's no way, because outside of that little bubble there in the Pennsylvania region, it's viewed as him kind of witnessing it. He never denied it. It's hearsay in court, but he's never denied it. I looked back and I tried to find out, and I sent it to you guys just so that I had it. So I tried to find if he kind of disavowed it or whatever, but he never really said one way or the other. So I guess he was named, it was a sealed testimony that named him as like the someone who witnessed it. They never called him into court, so no one really knew this. It was published last year, 2016. I don't know exactly when he was hired at Ohio State, but he tweeted a statement on it, and his response in July 12th of last year, he said, in response to media reports from earlier today, I never saw any abuse nor had any reason to suspect any abuse during my time at Penn State. The only reason he made that tweet was because he was getting pressured at Ohio State when this was released. Before that, he's had how many years? Because this broke in like 2009, 10, somewhere around there. He's had so many years to make a statement. In 2011, November 7th, Schiano said, I think in situations like this, the fewer comments, the better. They reach out for comments, and that's what he said. I think in situations like this, the fewer comments, the better. I'll tell you what, if I was named or associated with that program, I would have disavowed. He needs to disavow the program. That's basically the only course of action. The only reason he wouldn't is if he's hoping that down the line, Penn State is going to hire him. And I think that's what was happening whenever this whole transition took place. He was waiting and hoping that he would get that call to be the head coach at Penn State. And I'll tell you what, Greg, you're probably not going to hear this, but if you do, you need to come out and disavow the program. They're never going to hire you. They are never going to hire you, because it would be lambs to the slaughter. Because everyone outside of the Pennsylvania media bubble, the national media, I know some people like Herb Street were coming to his defense, and a bunch of other random people were saying, oh, yeah, but he was vetted by Ohio State or whatever. This didn't come out until I think after he was hired. I don't know the exact timeline. I couldn't find the dates because all news reports were slammed this past weekend of the Tennessee thing. Then he was asked again at a later date. This one didn't have a date, but his next quote was, because of the situation being what it is, I'm not even going to get into it. I'm so far removed. Again, you don't need people making commentaries on things like this. It's a sad thing. Again, didn't say anything about being there. He said it's sad. That's all he said. And that's why he's getting dragged through the mud. It's because he's had how many years to say something about the program, and he didn't. It was bound to come up. Everyone, I'll be honest, down here in the South, I still hear Sandusky jokes. It's a common thing. because that's what you think. If you think of outside of the Pennsylvania bubble, you hear things like that, coaching young boys, anything. It's a Sandusky joke. I hear it. It's wrong. It's disturbing, but that's what happens. So whenever you're removed from it, you're not in the area, what people see outside, they see people rallying to Paterno. Then he admits that he knew of the abuse and didn't do anything. His quote was, "I wish I did more." And then you go online and you type in and see like the Penn State stuff, and it's people just defending him. And it's sad because basically if Schiano and a couple other coaches were strong, like just leaders, like they're supposed to be, he's a public figure. That's why he'll never be hired. And Tennessee was right for pulling back the contract or whatever. And if they go to legal things, good luck, Greg, because what's going to happen is they're going to open this whole can of worms and you're going to be drugged through the mud again. And that's dumb if he goes after that, because you want to be drugged into the Penn State thing. That's what's going to happen. If other coaches from Penn State would have went ahead and spoke up and said it's wrong, Penn State needs to take a clear step away from it. But no one did. And what did they do? Penn State put a statue up of Joe Paterno, which keeps it in the media cycle. So there's no reason why Greg Schiano should have a shot.
Rich.
Go ahead, Matt.
I gotta jump in. For a very rare opportunity, you're gonna make me defend Penn State. With this whole Schiano thing, when all that news broke, bad as everything was, the media and everything associated with that, they wanted to just nail every single person they possibly could to the cross. I think for as many heads as you could have seen roll, if they had the evidence, they would have nailed everyone. And when they went with Schiano, with him being the unnamed person, the reason that the charges didn't go to him was because they didn't directly name him. They named, it was when
Mike McQuarrie,
the quarterback,
Mike McQuarrie.
When it went from McQuarrie said, I thought I heard from Bradley that it was Schiano that saw it. And so it was like through the grapevine of this person heard from this person, and it wasn't a credible thing. It was everyone's ass was on the line, and it was everyone just throwing spaghetti at the wall to try to keep the heat off of themselves. There was so much panic that you saw happen as all of that fell out. And as a coach, I would hate to find myself caught in a scenario where something like that was going on and having any kind of that negative backlash come back to you, where there's no way that people associated with that can find work. And it was lucky for Schiano that he was able to find his way back in, rebounding from Tampa to get back into Ohio State. Not saying that I don't know definitively what his role was or wasn't in that scenario, but I think looking at things objectively, from the time that all of that may have happened, I would strongly say that he had to have grown to a point that I feel strongly that he could have been capable of taking over a Tennessee job. Let's be honest. It's Tennessee. It wasn't like Nick Saban retired and we're trying to fill a Power 5 program. Tennessee's a bottom feeder in the SEC to begin with. They're acting like they need Jesus Christ to come down, and they're instantly going to be competing for SEC championships. I put them in the same boat as Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, teams that are delusional, that think it's the 1920s and that their team's relevant. They haven't been relevant in such a long time that they're eager to get back into the mix of things, and thinking that you're going to sign John Gruden is going to change everything around. It ain't going to happen. Even if they would have pulled the miracle off and hired John Gruden, maybe they would have got some recruits, but there's nothing to say that Gruden coming out of retirement was going to instantly transform Tennessee into a top-tier program or return it to what that past glory was. They ran Phil Fulmer out of town, and he won him a national championship. So, when you look at those kinds of things, there's definitely going to be blowback with that. Phil Fulmer took Tennessee 5 SEC championships in 16 years. The Vols have yet to hit the 8-win mark twice in the 9 years after he was hired. There's so much negativity that goes with it that I think that what you saw in the aftermath of the Schiano incident was
You're breaking up
going
a
to
bit,
social
Matt.
media.
I think it's
blowing it
Skype.
out of proportion. What's going to happen from this point going forward? What you're going to see is a lot longer of a process, and you're going to see a lot of these coaches getting recycled around because of the potential social media backlash of hiring a potential coach.
Well, I'll say
if they have any kind of baggage in the past.
Well, yeah, I'll add into that. I see where you're coming from about the defense. Well, just some extra stats on this case. There's actually a DA that they think had proof. Ray Grissar, not sure how to pronounce his last name. Grissar. So and this is why the Schiano thing was so important, because Schiano coached there from 1990 to 1995. They were gathering information on Sandusky during that time, which is why this is such a huge cover-up. So there was coaches that knew. They just didn't know who it was. There were rumors that it was Schiano and Bradley at that time. So I'll read you the statement on Grissar. So in 1998, hold on. So in 1998, Grissar declined to press charges against longtime Penn State football coach Jerry Sandusky following allegations of sexual abuse. 1998. That was right after Schiano left. That's the first time. In 2005, there was a hard drive that had information. If you remember the Penn State case, they were saying that there was no hard evidence. They didn't have the hard drive. They didn't have the computer files that were transmitted from that case. Grissar, they think that he had information on that from the first case. In 2005, he went missing with the hard drive. No one has ever found him, and they don't have that crucial evidence from the first investigation. That's why none of these coaches have spoken up. But what I'm saying is you have a chance to clear your name, and he says nothing. All he has to say back then, and I know it's a little bit different now because of how many comedians and other things that are coming out in Hollywood right now, but all he has to say back then is, hey, I didn't know what was going on. I'm no longer associated with Penn State. That's not the kind of culture that I want to be associated with. Something to that extent. Just anything to distance himself. But no, he was throwing his name in, trying to get hired. If you remember, he was trying to be, people were wondering if he would be the next head coach of Penn State to follow Paterno. And whenever you have the hard evidence and the first sexual allegations in 1998 line up with when you were there, then yeah, you're going to be associated with it whether you want to be or not. The fact that it didn't get brought to public attention until 2009 or 2010 or whenever that actually went through with the NCAA case is what took him down. But it was already under the public eye in 1998. Pennsylvania had already had the evidence. That evidence disappeared with the hard drive. But that's the same time Schiano was there. So I don't know why they didn't speak. Bradley was in the same boat. I couldn't find any quotes from him. He kind of scuffled out to UCLA. He's probably out of a job now that he's gone. But in the public face, there's no way. And Tennessee, why would you want that backlash? Tennessee as a university just had to settle a sexual allegation case against a student or someone that they had to redo some of their things. You'll have to look into that if you want to get some more information, because I don't want to harp on this too long. But Rick, you have any thoughts on this? Because you're close to the Penn State stuff.
Yeah. I'm trying to think which way I want to come at this. I will say this. The Greek car rumors has been going around the Penn State. There's a TV show. It was on either Discovery or something. It was about his mystery of his life and his family. You can catch that if you want to. It talks about everything and all the cases he was prosecuting and how many threats he had and everything along those lines. The Paterno statue's gone. There's always rumors it's going to come back. I don't believe it until it's actually put up and seen. People, and I don't know how to say this. Penn State has a big reach in the state of Pennsylvania. I mean, they have branch campuses on, the western side of the state, the eastern side of the state. And I mean, this state being a very heavily populated state. So, I mean, there's a huge umbrella with the Penn State. It's a lot stronger than Pitt with the Penn State and the amount of graduates and everything. What I will say is, what happened, especially for John Bradley. Previous, he was out of football. He was doing color commentary. I have a good friend that I went to high school with who was living in Pittsburgh. Said, "Hey, he's a bouncer at a bar in Pittsburgh." He goes, "I know for a fact it's him because he was a Pitt guy. He didn't like Penn State." And he goes, "I know it's John Bradley." I look at him and I say, "Hey, John," every time I see him. It's tough. John Bradley, who knows what will happen? Chip Kelly's at UCLA. Will he keep John or not? Who knows? He went to the same high school I did, so I don't know what will happen there. And this goes to the recycling and coaches' ideas. And I like the point Matt made. I like the word delusional. These teams there are schools that are delusional. They think that one hire is going to change the world. I remember when Todd Graham got installed at Pitt, people were buying the high octane shirts. And I remember just laughing, and they you like Hawaii? We're going to be like Hawaii and big points, nonstop, 5 receivers and everything. When June Jones was running Hawaii, and I'm like, dude, you don't have the receivers, you don't have the offensive line, you don't have the quarterback that's a gunslinger like Colt Brennan who could just gun it all over the place. They were thinking they were going to win the Big East, we were going to win everything, and Todd Graham flamed out. And then I remember I was even talking to a Pitt Ring of Honor person, and he even said, this guy sold us up a river. We didn't realize it. I'm like, how did you not realize it? This is the other thing. Doing your background investigations on what this guy's coached, how he's coached, how he's done. I don't understand how Todd Graham goes to Arizona State. I'm laughing at Arizona State fans when I vacation in Arizona. I'm like, this guy stunk in Pitt. You guys think he's going to get Jake Plummer out here and start throwing it around? No. And now he's gone at Arizona State. I don't understand it. It's just like, we got this guy and he's going to take us. Paul Chris is going to take Penn State. Yeah, or Pitt somewhere. He was gone within 2 years. He was at Wisconsin because that job opened up. And it was a better job. It was a better gig. There are only so many top coaches and top places to coach. Alabama's always there. Florida State's, in and out. I know Matt, Florida State's always one of those premier jobs. Georgia's a premier job. You have USC premier job. You have these premier jobs, and then these coaches that are there get entrenched. Nick Saban's either going to die or retire. That's how he's going to leave. He's not going to leave any other way. He's going to die or retire in that job. It's just, I don't get it. I don't know what you're thinking. These middle-level schools think they can jump up to the top when realistically, you got to get the recruits. You got to have a good staff. And here's the other thing. If you get really good on defense, your defensive coordinator is probably going to get bought out by, a Penn State, a Wisconsin. Hey, our defensive coordinator stunk. We're getting rid of him. We had not even a top 50 defense. He's fired. We're going to steal your defensive coordinator now because we can outpay you. We can outpay this guy to come with us. Oh yeah, and if he does good here, he's probably going to get a long-term deal. I think that's the part of college football that frustrates me. Is I used to hear this about this one coworker. She's like, "Stay in your lane, stay in your lane." Well, that's the theory of college football. Stay in your lane. You're not a top tier school, and it just goes back to my Pitt argument this week. They beat Miami. Okay, great, brag it up. But you also lost to UNC and 6 other opponents, and you don't become bowl eligible. So who cares about you? Your season's done. Pack your bags, try better in the spring ball. And if you're lucky, Narduzzi may still be there, or maybe a defensive coordinator. He may not get bought out of Tennessee or Arizona State, but I guess Herb Edwards is going to get that one because ESPN's laying off people again. It's the recycling. Okay, Greg Schiano, you didn't do well in pros. You bombed out. You had some problems. You went against the media. Your club, you couldn't control your 50-some guys on your roster, 54, I guess. And then you're in the college. Herm Edwards, what happens? You yell at the media every week, and you didn't do well. You go to ESPN. Now ESPN's laying you off, so you got to go back to this call. You got to go back to football. You can't get a pro job, so you got to go to this middle-level school, which has been thinking since 1996. When are we going to have the next Jake Plummer show up? I mean, I don't get it. I mean, Arizona State's a good example. Pitt's a good example. You think you're going to make these colossal jumps. We're going to go 9-1, 10-1. You're not. Get a clue. It's like Pirate fans who think they still have a chance at the playoffs. You have a pitching staff of garbage, and trailer trash, and then mixed with like a dumpster fire to like a volcanic eruption. You're not good. It's just trash. Go ahead.
Well, I agree with you, and that's why I wanted to bring this up, because I wanted to center it around Wisconsin. Because I brought this up before at the middle of the season, and it's now all the coaches that I brought up previously have all been fired. You had Brett Bielema, who was at Wisconsin. Now, Wisconsin had a system that they run in their high schools. So they run there, and those people in high school, you learn that system, and whenever they get their recruits, when they're getting the 3-4-star recruits in state, and they're trying to shoot for the moon at out-of-state recruits, they're getting guys that know their system. They can go in, bulk up, become great linemen. They can get a freshman running back like Taylor this year that can just step right in and pick up 7 yards a carry. It's crazy, but that's the system. Brett Bielema wanted more than that. He leaves for Arkansas, and it sets off this coaching carousel where everyone recycled everyone. Anderson, I think he went to Wisconsin to fill in. He was from Oregon State, I believe. Oregon State hires Mike Riley, something similar to that. Mike Riley then goes to Nebraska, and Anderson jumps to Oregon State, which is crazy at the time. We talked about it earlier in the year. I haven't heard anything else, but Anderson stepped away, and I said it was fishy at the time, but he hasn't really made any statements or anything. I tried to find something to see what happened with him, but he's back, or he was out, so he got out. Riley gets fired at the end of Nebraska because Riley was he had one winning year at Oregon State, so there was no reason Nebraska should have hired him. So you have all these coaches, all three of those coaches that moved through around that Wisconsin program, or like the Big Ten with Riley. He was kind of connected with the Oregon State deal whenever they traded him for Gary Anderson from Wisconsin. And then Christ, you brought up Pitt, Rick, but Christ was at Pitt. He makes a jump back to Wisconsin where I think he played there. And Wisconsin is full of a staff.
Played there. His dad coached there.
It's in his blood.
There was a huge thing on that was a dream job for him. So it was crazy for him to think he would stay at Pitt.
Yeah, and I think Wisconsin has a bunch of coaches that have been there, been around the program. They know what it takes. They know they're a long shot. Right now, they're sitting undefeated going into the conference championships. But everyone else, these other programs are just grasping at straws. Nebraska might get lucky and be able to get Frost from UCF. I think Florida was trying to get him too. I'm not sure where Mullen fell in that rotation, if he was second or third or what they were trying to do there. But it looks like Frost is going to go to Nebraska. I could be wrong on that. I don't think anything's been signed. But he's in the American Conference Championship game. And you have all these coaches, you're just rotating them. Now some SEC schools were saying, maybe we can try Bielema out after he just bombed at Arkansas. So who's going to pick him up? Maybe Mississippi State. They just lost Mullen. Let's just recycle him. You had Orgeron. He was awful at USC. He had his chance. I think he was awful at another Ole Miss or somewhere. And he comes in now. LSU hires him. And now they have a decent year, but below what Les Miles was able to do. And it's crazy to me that no one is trying to get Les Miles. They're recycling these other coaches, but they're not going after coaches that have actually won championships. Matt, have you ever heard anything on Jimbo? Is he honestly considering the A&M job? Because to me, that's pure recycling coaches. I know he has a national championship, but why go to A&M?
Yeah.
You're breaking up there. But
I'll tell you why. Because I think what the last couple years, he's been parlaying the rumors, and he's been able to leverage the university for contract extensions, and he's been able to leverage them for more money to funnel more funds to the program. And if the latest rumors are true, he was trying to leverage the university for over $60 million for more football independent facility upgrades. And I think the university was going to be making those upgrades regardless, but I think he overplayed his hand. And he pissed off a lot of boosters in the process. And I think it's one of those where he's kind of worn out his welcome of every year he's being brought up for some of these other programs. For 2 years it's been LSU, now it's Texas A&M, and he doesn't just outright say, no, I'm at Florida State. Like, I have a long-term contract. My ex-wife is here. My kids are here. I'm staying here. He's turning it into this, well, am I leaving? Am I not leaving? And he leaves everyone on this cliffhanger until after the season. So I'm starting to lean towards he's gone.
You think he's out? I've heard that with his kid, there's like a weird custody thing where he's going to have trouble if he does leave getting the same visitation rights or whatever because he's out of state or something. But I don't know. Maybe that's something that could be resolved. I don't know how old his kid is.
He has one that's high school age and one that's probably going to be close to that here relatively soon. I thought that would be a reason to keep him there. But if Texas A&M gives him an extra $2 million a year, that could probably help smooth things over. And if A&M's willing to give up control over facilities and program, like the managerial side of things, he may be willing to jump. I just think that from Florida State, I'm hoping that if he decides to make that move, he does it soon, so that they're not left trying to scramble at the 11th hour to find another replacement coach.
Yeah, and that's the only thing you can hope for. And I'm going to use this to kind of segue into, if you're watching a live stream, which we go live on Facebook Live. So if you just listen to the audio on iTunes or whatever, and you want to check us out, we have a live stream that we do on Facebook Live on Tuesdays. I'm looking into maybe syndicating it later on another network, maybe back on Periscope or something, but I haven't figured that out yet. Once I get the studio up and running, I'll be doing that. But with the coaches, like you said about family, I wanted to bring this up. I don't know if I did. Last week, I was watching Game Day with Michigan and Wisconsin, and then of course you have Herb Street say that you're going to have some major coaching moves this year, and he mentioned Harbaugh going back to the NFL, and that's one of the things that like people often overlook when I asked about Jimbo Fisher's family. If your family's right where you live, like I think Harbaugh has said multiple times that his dad lives in Ann Arbor with him, and so his grandkids get to see them all the time. If you move away to another city, you don't have that dynamic. And that's very important. I think that's the reason why Kirk Ferentz at Iowa, he was considered for an NFL job in like 2002 all the way up through 2009, 11. Every time Iowa has a good year, the NFL rumors start with him. But he was able to put all three of his kids through college. I think they all played for him. I think one or two of them are on the staff right now. But that's a dynamic where some coaches, that's important. And maybe that's a reason they don't say publicly that they're able to make that jump. So I was wondering if that was a situation with Jimbo because, of course, it's just a random thing. And then I think Herb Street tried to backpedal it and was like, no, I was just making Harbaugh an example because he could go back to the NFL. But then it's the same ESPN that's saying that Harbaugh is awful because he can't beat Ohio State. But he's also so good that NFL teams want him. So they can't figure out what they want to do. But I'll use that to get into, if you're watching a live stream, I don't know if I said it, I moved the conference championships up. I had it as the last topic. But since we've kind of gone kind of long, we'll save the NFL for last and just kind of segue into that. So conference championships, they were set pretty much across the board. But Michigan played Ohio State in the game, the biggest rivalry game. I saw some talk about how it wasn't a rivalry game because Michigan hasn't won for a while. So I kind of dug into the stats a little bit. I think Michigan's won 2, lost like 14 or something like that, 15 in a row. But before that, Michigan had won 13 or 12. They won 12 and Ohio State had only won 3. So it's kind of like an opposite cycle here where now it's like Michigan had won throughout the 80s and the 90s, and now Ohio State has won through the first 2 decades, and everyone has been hoping that Harbaugh's able to switch it back to maybe a 50-50 even matchup. Because you had the 90s where Ohio State might have been ranked number 1, Michigan was beating them, and then Michigan wins the national championship. Then in the 2000s, Ohio State's winning, and they win 2 national championships since that turn. So when the rivalry flips, you have that whoever is on top usually has a chance to win the national championship. Of course, Ohio State's sitting there right now, and a lot of people are saying, is this conference championship going to propel them in? And I don't know if it's going to, because right now you have Alabama lose. And Alabama, I think, Matt, did you send this? Where, so just some coaching talk. Nick Saban had said last year when Ohio State wasn't the Big Ten champion and they got into the playoffs, and Saban says you should have to win your conference to be in the college football playoff. And then this year, he said, I think the team deserves the opportunity to get in the playoff by what they've been able to accomplish, which is nothing. They don't have any top wins, not any top 10 wins, I don't think so. They've lost to everyone.
Not much anymore.
Yeah. They played like Mississippi State, who is like a 3 or 4 loss team. And then they beat LSU, I think, who's like a 3 or 4 loss team. Florida State didn't pan out. Yeah, they might have been top 5 at the beginning of the year, but that Florida State team is barely going to be bowl eligible.
Imploded.
Yeah. So you have a coach that you're comparing apples to apples. Why is a win over, let's say, the Mississippi State, who has 3 or 4 losses, not comparable to like the Wisconsin win over Michigan, who's in the similar situation? It's basically the same. So if Wisconsin wins, they should be in. I don't know about Ohio State. Will Ohio State jump Alabama? It's going to be very interesting.
No.
You don't think they will?
There's no way Ohio State. Ohio State didn't score a point in the playoffs last year. If you don't win your conference championship, go sit at home. You don't get to go to the playoffs.
Well, I'm saying if they
score
win,
a point again.
Ohio State's in the Big Ten championship.
If they can pull the win off, then I think there's reason to let them back in.
Oh yeah, they're not in if they lose to Wisconsin. I'm saying it's going to be either Wisconsin or Ohio State that's going to take one of the spots. It's looking like, and it's going to. Well, if Ohio State wins, then it's going to be who? The ACC champ. You have SEC champ, because I'd imagine the losers are out. If you lose a conference championship, I think you're going to have a very hard time making it. Like if Wisconsin loses, they only have 1 loss. I still don't think they're going to get in just because your last game is a loss. I don't think that's ever happened. Like I don't think anyone has ever lost their championship game and backed into the national championship, have they? I'd have to go back through the stats, but I don't remember it happening. Normally, if you lose the conference championship game, and that wasn't a national championship game, though. Or that wasn't a conference championship game. When LSU beat Alabama, that was in October, I think. And Alabama just backed their way back in. LSU won the SEC championship game, but because they're both in the West, Alabama didn't play that year. So a loss didn't eliminate them. I'm saying if you lose that last championship game, I don't know if that's ever happened. And a lot of conferences like the Big 12, you're looking at it now. Everyone has been talking about it all year. It's hard to beat the same team twice. So is Oklahoma even going to be able to beat TCU again? They looked like they outclassed them last game, but I don't know. Anything you guys want to add on this? Matt, you can go ahead.
Confirmed. Well, just while we're backing up a sec to the coaching carousel, Joe Moorhead, OC at Penn State, is going to be the next head coach at Mississippi State. So he's taking the jump from the Big Ten to the SEC.
Wow, that's actually a shocker.
I think a good hire for him, and that's a case where I don't mind that happening because he worked his way up from Fordham, step up to Penn State as a coordinator. Now he's jumping into a head coaching role. I don't see that as a recycling of coaches because they're moving up. There was also talks of Brent Venables being slated for some of those. With Venables being at Clemson as long as he is, I thought he would be a lifer. I thought he would be like what Bud Foster is at Vautech. But apparently he's been interviewing as well for head coaching jobs now as well.
Yeah, I've heard that. Recycling would be like if Bielema had taken that job because he just failed at Arkansas, or if he takes another job. But I think that's a good move by Moorhead.
Right.
Rick, you looked a little nervous there. That's not good news for you because
it stinks that you lose your coordinator who helped your offense and everything. And I mean, we're going to have Trace McSorley for at least one more year. But Barkley's going to go to the NFL.
He has to now. There were rumors that he might stay, but I think if Moorhead's gone, I don't see him staying.
I think he has to go. I think his stock's never going to be higher. And the problem is, as we all know, with running backs, especially this year in the NFL, they fall like nobody's business. There's so many injuries to running backs this year. So I mean, he's got to go. I mean, I hate saying it, but I don't know about the Heisman yet, and I think this week's going to kill him because they're not playing. So, but And I'll say this: if Wisconsin wins, they're in the Final Four. I think if Ohio State wins, they're in the Final Four because Ohio State can at least say, "Hey, we beat Penn State a top 25, we beat Michigan a top 25, and we beat Wisconsin, who'll be a top 10."
I don't think we're top 25 anymore, though.
Oh, that stinks. But there are so many games. But I don't know. I don't know if Oklahoma is going to win. That one, even though Vegas is favoring by 7 points, that's nothing much, and they got home field advantage, and they're only giving.
Well, do you think that Baker Mayfield should win the Heisman? Because I've heard some media types say that he should be disqualified for his antics.
I don't think some people are going to vote for him. It's like steroid users in Major League Baseball. I think.
Yeah, but that award has nothing to do. It's not a sportsman award. It's the best player in college football, and basically he looks like it.
But they have had problems with that award, though. Reggie Bush took money. They took his trophy away.
Yeah, and that was dumb. They should give it back. If they're not taking wins off UNC for fake classes. I also was looking at, speaking of that, like Notre Dame lost football wins I didn't know about. Because, of course, at the end of the year, I have to check to see if Michigan still has that best winning percentage of all time. And then I was like, where's Notre Dame? Because they were right neck and neck with us 2 or 3 years ago. I was at one of the games where we passed them up. And the NCAA has taken like 10 or 12 wins away from Notre Dame, which is outrageous. There's no reason for that. If you're not going to punish UNC, you shouldn't take wins from Notre Dame for like a tutoring thing or something. I tried to look into it. I don't even remember it happening. And then the Reggie Bush Heisman, like you said, Dom, give it back to him. That has nothing to do with him being the best player in college football. Who cares if he took money? They obviously didn't know about it. They don't care if people aren't graduating, if they're not even going to class, but they do care about someone getting money and he's the best player. Give him the Heisman back. Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, I would have trouble voting for him as a number one. Maybe because I know you get to pick 1, 2, 3, 4 on the different tiers. I'd probably put him lower just because of the on-field antics that were caught. So, but I don't know. Hey. I don't think there's going to be much shakeup. I think a lot of the teams that are going to win. But Ohio State's favored by 6.5. So that's a weird one. So I'll wait and see on that. But it is a neutral field game too. So, but I see pretty much everybody winning. And you got the one thing I've learned in America about this year, I will say this, you got to cry to help yourself. Don't care about anybody else. Help yourself. Even if it's a reverse of what you're thinking. So if I say, I love orange Kool-Aid and been saying it for 32 years of my life, and my 33 year, I'll be like, grape's the best. If I need to kiss somebody's butt and say, grape's the best Kool-Aid, Mr. Heisman Trophy Committee, grape's the best. We all love grape Kool-Aid. You got to do it. And that's what I think Nick Saban's doing. He's pandering to his people and pandering to get votes to get his team in.
Well, that's a good thing that you brought that up, because that's kind of where I was going with the Schiano thing. I get too excited and then it probably didn't make sense. But he basically needs to look out for himself, say that he's not associated with Penn State, and then get a head coaching job. It would be that simple. You can't not say anything in the climate that we're in, because everyone sees it's just social media. All they have to do is take a screenshot of the testimony out of context and pass it around, and that's the only thing people see. People don't read past the headlines. So some guy with a blog makes a sensational headline, and that's it. To keep going with that, I love Baker Mayfield. As a trash talker myself, I love it. That's how I would play the game. Who cares if it's offending people? I just think he shouldn't be apologizing. If the coaches say you have to apologize and he missed 2 plays, if I was him, I would have just laughed and I've been like, Coach, don't even put me back in for a little bit here. They're playing West Virginia. They absolutely destroyed them. But I think he missed 2 plays. He was supposed to be, I think the rumor was he was supposed to be suspended for the first half. That didn't happen. So at that point, they didn't want to ruin his Heisman chances. But to be there, it's not. And I'll circle back around to the game, and then I'll let you guys talk, and we'll just end with NFL stuff. I have in my notes here the Michigan-Ohio State game. There was some talk, and I've seen some crazy things. Some fans are definitely crazy. They're saying that Harbaugh doesn't have the fire that he used to have, but Urban Meyer has it because of a post-game interview. I don't know if you guys saw this. So after the game, if you watch the game, J.T. Barrett, and Ohio State's quarterback, he went down in about the third or fourth quarter and tweaked his knee. And he couldn't get up, and he limped off the field. Well, in the post-game interview, Urban Meyer gets mad and accuses a cameraman from Fox of taking JT Barrett out before the game on purpose. So if you're listening, look this up. Urban Meyer goes crazy, and it is a Fox cameraman on the sideline because Michigan. Why would Michigan have a cameraman on the Ohio State sideline? It doesn't make any sense. But he think that it was, and someone else from the Ohio State sideline said that it looked like it was intentional. Someone ran into JT Barrett's knee. But it doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. Because if you look at the trainer notes, JT Barrett had a meniscus injury. And I know because I had surgery on a meniscus. The meniscus is actually the padding in your knee. So the rumors are that Urban has been playing Barrett hurt all season. And this is kind of his cover-up. Because basically, if you're a coach, you're running your quarterback into the ground. Your knee only has so much padding. And you can look this up and get some information, but it's your meniscus. It's basically the padding in your knee. It's kind of like a cartilage. So I hyperextended my knee playing baseball, stretching for trying to beat out a throw to first base. And it kind of hyperextended my knee and it squished that padding. And they thought it might have squished it so hard that it like caused a tear, but there was so much scar tissue that they couldn't tell. So I had to go into surgery. They cleaned out the scar tissue because I lost complete flexibility. I was only able to bend my knee about 50% before, so they had to scrape it out. But the doctor said, because I was at a bunch of different meetings about this, and I remembered because he said, we didn't have to clean it out, but you wouldn't have the flexibility. And on the other hand, we could clean it out, but you only get so much cartilage there. If we scrape it out and you injure this again, or it could completely rip, and then you're going to be bone on bone, and you're going to have basically knee arthritis. So if Barrett was playing with a meniscus injury and hasn't been giving it time to heal, he could have permanent damage. This isn't like an ACL where they're just going to go ahead and stitch it back together with horse. That was the old rumor. They had horse tendons in like the old Tommy John surgery, where they said that if you used other animal tendons that were stronger, you'd throw the ball faster. But you can't just go ahead and take different tendons and stitch them back together. That's not how the meniscus works. So it'll be very interesting. Go ahead and keep an eye on this, because I mentioned it before, and Rick just brought it up about being friends with the media. Urban Meyer's friends with the media, so they're going to go ahead and take what he says, and they're going to go ahead and run with it. They're not going to do their research. If he has a meniscus injury, this could be NFL career ending. Because if it's bone on bone, you can't walk. And he was in a jacket on the sideline, and him and Urban gave each other a look. And I was kind of like, I thought he was going to come back into the game because I thought he spun it and it might have been like a strain or a sprain. But they gave each other a look on the sideline, and it was not a happy look. And I was kind of confused on that because Barrett was running wild. He wasn't injured before the game. So it makes sense that it was a meniscus injury, that a trainer supposedly leaked that information after Urban's rant. Because a cameraman running into him before the game would not hurt your meniscus. That's an impact injury from putting too much pressure on your knee. So keep an eye on that. I didn't know if you guys saw that, or if you want to give any final thoughts on college football before we wrap up with the NFL here. Rick, you have any thoughts?
No.
Matt, what about you?
I just want to see how everything shape up over the next couple weeks. I know as a Florida State fan, I've been very spoiled because I've only in my lifetime experienced Bobby Bowden and Jimbo Fisher. So venturing into new waters now, if Jimbo actually does take this A&M job, I'm curious to see what the future holds for the program. I like the model of hiring someone and staying true to them. And I don't like this direction that college football is taking, where very quickly they're turning coaches out. And I don't want it to become a program where every 4 to 5 years it's a revolving door of new coaches because the fan base is not satisfied. You know, I think, at least from Florida State standpoint, Jimbo Fisher just won a national championship not that long ago. And it's just funny to me watching the reaction of the armchair quarterbacks who really don't know what they're looking at, and trying to throw Jimbo Fisher under the bus. Like suddenly he forgot how to coach when a couple years ago he's leading the NCAA in scoring offense, and now it's all Jameis Winston's fault that we were as good as what we were back then.
Well, that's funny that you mentioned that, because I was thinking the same thing, and you actually texted me. You were like, hey, Michigan actually brought their offense over the weekend because we thought they wouldn't score at all because we're on our third string quarterback. And I see all these guys on Twitter, they're like, Harbaugh lost his touch. He's not a quarterback whisperer anymore. When you get two quarterbacks injured, like, what are you supposed to do at that point? But to your point, where you're saying about everyone firing coaches very soon, yeah, I think that's a trend, and I think that's going to eventually stop. Because you're getting to the point where the universities, number one, your coach has to be a public face, and that's where the Tennessee and Schiano thing, you're the public figure. You're getting paid millions of dollars to be the face of the program. You really don't want any dirt, unless you're willing to go for that just to make up for the other thing that's important is wins. So as a university, you're trying to balance both. Do you have a guy that can get you more money from boosters? That's check number one. If the boosters don't, they will sabotage him. If you look at Rich Rod at Michigan, sad as it was, I love Rich Rod. He got a bum deal there. Boosters didn't go behind him. He wasn't the public face that they wanted. Didn't matter if the man could coach, because he was one win away from getting the national championship at West Virginia. You needed the booster support to go ahead and get those wins. And number two, it's getting the wins. Yeah, if you win a national championship, you should be in the cycle. And I think that right now it's a dog-eat-dog world where it's 4 teams in, and you're only going to see the top brands get in, and eventually everyone's going to get tired of it. When you only have like 8 to 10 teams that have a realistic chance to get in the playoffs, and whenever you're not a name brand like Wisconsin, even though you play in a big conference, the conference that makes the most money, maybe the SEC, I'm not sure who's at top dog, it rotates it seems, you should be in. But because you're not that name, because you're not the Michigan or the Penn State or the Ohio State that might draw in eyeballs, they're saying that they're not qualified this year. And eventually the ADs are going to step up from all the little schools, and you're going to see that playoff expand. I'm hoping directly to 16. If it expands to 16 teams, you won't see the change, because at 8-3 or 8-4, 9-3, you're one step away from making that last seed, and you'll see coaches last a lot longer. Think the NFL, where you have an Andy Reid type that might be able to squeeze in the playoffs every 5 out of 8 years, even if you get bounced in the first round. And that's where you're going to see a lot of schools step up, and they're going to push for that. The ratings are going to slip if it's the same teams in the playoffs every year. You've already started to see it whenever the playoffs are only in its third year. And unless you start to give these smaller schools, like to me, there's no reason UCF shouldn't be in the playoffs. They're undefeated. They played a Power 5 school, Maryland. I know Maryland's not the top dog, but it's not like they can't control their own conference schedule because no one will add them to the conference. They were trying to get in the Big 12. So that's out of their control. So it's going to have to expand. And we'll end on that. NFL Thanksgiving weekend. I actually watched a good bit of the NFL stuff, and this will be it for me, and you guys can end on whatever. The Thanksgiving games, I know it's a tradition where they only have one on at each time slot. I really think the NFL, if they're trying to force us to watch games on Thursday night, they're trying to make us watch games on Sunday at 1, Sunday at 4, Sunday night, and then Monday night, they should just go all out on Thanksgiving and do what the NBA does. The NBA gives you more games and more options. I'm pretty sure they have 2 games going at the same time on Christmas. So if one game is an absolute bust, you can change the game. And that's what I would like to see the NFL do. Kind of expand your tradition. If you want to be the premier NFL event, and I'm not sure, the ratings went down again, but I'm not sure how much I didn't look at it. But if the ratings are going down, you need to make changes. And I understand, but whenever like the Steelers played on Sunday night, I was already worn out on football because I had NFL on Thursday, I had college on Friday, college on Saturday, and then a whole slate of games on Sunday, and then a Monday night game last night. I couldn't even watch it. It's too much for me because it's not good games. So the NFL needs to do something, and I think if they got rid of the Monday night game on Thanksgiving weekend and added more games to the Thursday night slot, it would make it more of a win, because how many times do we watch a Thanksgiving game where it's a blowout? You eat the meal, you're visiting family, you're eating the meal, you go ahead and you watch that first game, and it's the Lions or whoever, and they're getting absolutely slaughtered. I know that didn't happen this past week, but that's what I remember on Thanksgiving is just bad football. And it's like a tradition of watching one team get blown out. So to me, they need to expand it. Give us some options. Man, I have 8 different options to watch parades, but I don't get an option for my football. And that's where I think college football wins. And I'll end with that. You guys have anything else you want to add? We'll start with you, Matt.
I was just really excited over the weekend to watch. I gave Julio Jones some crap, and he responded well with a 50-point fantasy week. So glad to see that he decided to come back and show why he's one of the top fantasy performers. Single-handedly kept my team afloat and ended the season with a big dub. So a little bit of love to Julio.
Yeah, and congrats, Rick. Rick actually won my division in fantasy football this year. I know nothing's more boring than people talking about fantasy football or their kids. But I just wanted to give you a shout out. I meant to open the show with it, but anything for you to end the show on?
Pretty much. If you're wondering who's your NFL quarterbacks this weekend, here are some bad ones to pick from. Geno Smith, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Brett Hundley, Jacoby Brissett, Trevor Siemian, Matt Moore, Josh McCown, Tom Savage, Blaine Gabbert, Mitch Trubisky, Deshaun Kaiser, and add Jimmy Garoppolo to that list. There are some of your starting NFL quarterbacks. We wonder why ratings down because most of these guys are not good. They weren't even good in college. Tom Savage, you're still awful. So that's one thing I do want to say about how bad Tom Savage is. And if you're Gundy, you are staying at Oklahoma State. Yeah, I think you were trying to use it for money, just like every rumor out there. I think it's all about getting money and getting an extension. See the James Franklin, Texas A&M rumors, and pretty much anybody who gets rumored to Texas A&M. I think it's just a way to get money. But, that's pretty much about it for me. Yeah, and Darren McFadden retires today. Too.
Wow.
So there, 10-year veteran gone.
All right.
When you have how many injuries as running backs in the NFL, Darren McFadden retires.
That's why Barkley's going to come out this year.
Yeah, because he knows he can get big money out of teams.
Pretty soon, the NFL is going to move away from having running backs, though. As long as, like, Ezekiel Elliott, how many people do you think got screwed having Ezekiel Elliott on their team in fantasy football? Like, I'm pretty sure my brother had him and just got smoked the last couple weeks.
Destroyed.
Yeah. He was, like, in the first place, and he fell out just because he hasn't been playing. And it's awful for the league because how many people only watch the football for fantasy football, and then you have things like that. And the celebrations, which we're going to probably do that. Well, we're going to do a special show for the College Bowl selection. I haven't found the details out, but I'm going to be sending that out as I'm fixing stuff up for the site. So keep an eye out for that. Sorry if my angry ramblings ruined the show, but if you have any feedback, go ahead and leave us a voicemail. Call us at 412-330-1512. Leave us a voicemail. Give us some feedback or send us some message on Twitter, some questions maybe. Going to think about adding some questions and answers to the show. Make sure you subscribe, tell your friends, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for listening.